Shooting it raw?
Yes. Shooting it raw. Wait a second. So this photo is okay. Okay, so um the horizon line is a bit off kilter because whoever photographed made the photo probably was doing a sort of action in the landscapes shot. It's an interesting image because half the ground is like quite barren, not super alive. It looks like a high desert. Far off in the distance is like a mound, like a butte, I guess some might call it. The sky is filled with clouds. The bottom half is brown, lots of browns. There's a date on the image that says 2007, either June or May. And in the photo are 4 people and maybe, I don't know, some kind of pack animal. I'm not really sure. The 4 people are kind of hiking through what's a really not very, I mean, it looks like a trail, but it's like a trail to nowhere, to that butte. That's looks like at least 5 kilometers away or something. Very, very dramatic shot. Probably done at about late morning, early afternoon. Yeah, this is a really interesting. Okay, what's this story, Lance? What is this?
So this is northern Kenya.
Oh wow! Wow!
A district in Kenya called Marsabit.
Mm-hmm.
Well, now it's a county. I mean, they changed their governance system a bit, but yeah. So it was Marsabit district at the time, Marsabit County. That's in north central Kenya. It's the driest part of Kenya, and parts of the Marsabit landscape. I mean, parts of it. If you could just ignore a few sticks of grass sticking up here and there, you might wonder if you're actually on the moon or on Mars or something.
Yeah, it's really quite barren.
Yeah, very rugged landscape. They get very little rainfall. It's not barren because it's mismanaged. It's just that's how much rainfall they get.
Mm-hmm.
Just the air circulation patterns and currents and sort of global climate patterns of which way the wind blows and where the wet air is and isn't. This place has been dry for tens of thousands of years, if not longer. Yeah, I was doing my PhD field research. So I've got a PhD in natural resources and environmental management, and I spent a year in Kenya. Most of that time in Marsabit in northern Kenya. Went down to the city, to Nairobi once in a while for a week or so at a time, but mostly I was up in Marsabit. And working most of the time with nomadic pastoralist groups. So these are people who make their livelihood not from farming, but from moving around with their livestock.
Wow!
So I think in this case we've got looks like three donkeys.
Okay.
This ethnic group, their key cultural animal is camels rather than donkeys, but. Mm-hmm. People who own donkeys as well. They're a bit more affordable than camels. And I mean, aside from my research and being important for me professionally, so I was advancing in my career in environment and natural resource management. I think the landscape here too was just so amazing, so rugged, and the Gabra people, this ethnic group, the ones who still live a traditional life, are just so tough and so amazing that and the knowledge they have is how to create a livelihood in this place where any of the rest of us would, we'd be dead of dying of thirst within a few days, if not less. So just working with them and learning some of the issues about how policies are affecting them and their livelihoods, and just more sort of interesting and human things of their day-to-day life. It was a fabulous, wonderful experience. And again, I was, I think it was part of that landscape. I eventually, as I moved, I wasn't writing professionally. I went to university and I studied planning, and then I went in to do my PhD and studied environment and natural resources, and working in the environment field. But I didn't set out to work in rangeland ecosystems necessarily at the beginning. but I kept getting drawn into these kinds of landscapes.
Hmm.
So, I don't have a whole lot of experience working with, not nearly as much working in forest ecosystems or coastal peoples and coral reefs. Most of my work has been in like prairies, deserts, or some kind of rangeland or grassland kinds of ecosystems, and the people who live there and make these places their home.
Lance, I'm eating this up. Not expected. Arguably, your PhD thesis was your first book, right? I mean, that's really a massive exercise in writing. Like, I love the fact that I have no idea what I'm going to see, and all of a sudden, I'm looking at this shot. Because yeah, one thing now that you mention it, is that you walking? Because there's somebody wearing like a
Yeah,
beige
that's
sun hat, beige kind of shirt, beige pants. I mean, you're like, I'm protecting myself from the sun. You're like, no way, the sun
yes,
isn't getting me. And you've got a backpack.
yeah,
And in front of you are these three sort of pastoralists wearing what almost looks like a sarong, with some the clothing draped over their heads and their shoulders. And it's a crazy shot in the sense that, yeah, it's so barren, and it's kind of like you guys are forging ahead. Did you make it to that faraway hillside, or were you just like,
So I think so. This would have been we were returning from a watering point.
mm-hmm,
They had their camp. I wouldn't call it a village. It's like a hamlet, really, but it's a mobile hamlet.
mm-hmm,
Hamlet. So they would, they'd move every few weeks or so.
mm-hmm,
They'd use up the grass in that area. The ticks or whatnot, other parasites from the animals would start to build up in one place. So every few weeks they would move to another place. Their camp was, and we can't see it in this picture. I think there's like a bit of a rise and like a tiny little dip in the land
mm-hmm.
somewhere near the horizon. But I think their camp was about a kilometer before that hill.
Okay.
And there's a watering point. So we're coming back from a watering point, and it's not very visible in the photos, but the donkeys are carrying these jerry cans full of
Hmm.
water, and so they're carrying the jerry cans back to their camp.
And now you're in Thunder Bay. Is that right?
And now I'm in Thunder Bay. Yeah, very very
Very
different kind of place.
different. Yeah, I know. Okay. And what was the title of your thesis?
Oh, um, it was a while ago now. How Gabra pastoralists influence resilience.
Okay.
I mean, there's a longer that
Yeah,
was
I'm
that might
sure.
have been the subtitle. The title was longer, but yeah, that was part of it.
Okay.
So I was my work was revolved around social ecological resilience,
Mm-hmm.
trying to understand what it is that makes the systems that keep us alive, and the ecosystems and the social systems, and how those are interrelated, and what it is that makes those things work and last and deal with shocks and stresses.
Wow.
And I was looking at how Gabra people manage their ecosystems and keep themselves resilient.
Right. So are you teaching at Lakehead, for example? Like right now?
No,
No?
no,
Okay.
no, no.
Okay, so as a good Canadian, I have this strong conservation and science-based aspect as well, interest. I love the idea that what you seem to specialize back then, at least, I don't know if that's still you, but it's like the kind of the mix of, it seems to be like resource management, conservation, but also it sounds like climate and I don't know. I mean, so take us to school, like or take me to school. What can I learn about in terms of that sort of that intersection or mix of disciplines?
Sure. So, I mean, my work has mostly revolved around sort of governance and institutions and planning, sort of how human beings organize themselves and make decisions has been
Mm.
the focus of my research work.
Hmm.
But I most of the time I'm approaching it with this sort of systems thinking, complex systems kind of lens. So trying to understand all the intricate ways that ecosystems and climate systems and political systems and cultural systems, how they're all interlinked and how each one
Amazing.
influences the other. So I mean that's been the focus of my research work. And I don't know. I think regardless of what kind of ecosystem or climate you live in, I think there's a lot to learn from these kinds of mobile pastoralists.
Okay.
Because, coming from a comparatively pleasant kind of climate, my reaction would be, this is so rugged. These guys are so tough to live in this climate. How do they cope? But, for them, it's not coping. This is our home.
Yeah. Yep.
This is, like saying a pastoralist copes with the unpredictable climate and the aridity and the droughts is kind of like saying, well, the job of a fisherman is to cope with the sea.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the sea is there, and yes, you have to cope with it, but no, the fishermen are creating a livelihood. They're bringing food out of that resource, and if they're doing it sustainably, they're managing that resource and providing food for us and creating homes and livelihoods and cultures for themselves. And it's the same way for these pastoralists, even in like to my mind, harsh desert type climates. They're not just coping; they're living there. They're creating lives there and have found ways to, over time, to adapt their culture to fit in that kind of climate. And I think that way of looking at it has a lot to offer those of us where you're thinking about policy, or you're thinking about on a personal level, what do I do about my own personal, climate footprint?
Mm-hmm.
I think we need to, especially those of us who are living in industrial societies or in urban setting, is to think a bit more and find ways to reestablish that human connection with ecosystems, because in modern urban life, you get so disconnected from nature.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And we start to see nature as a resource. And my field had natural resources in it, which I'm kind of sends the thinking in the wrong direction.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, it's we draw on resources, but the ecosystems, the biosphere, the world is not just a resource. It's our home.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we need to understand again that we're part of it. We're in it, and I think we have to learn how to live in a bit more harmoniously with it. But I think that kind of perspective of seeing it as a place I live in, and I'm working towards creating a livelihood in this world, creating lives and cultures and societies in this world that fit, that are matched with that ecosystem,
Mm-hmm.
is part of what we need to do as we try and work towards more sustainable ways of living.
Mm. Whoa, that was a lot. Yeah. Unfortunately, we're not fortunately, but we have to move on to the next photo because it just goes by very quickly. But it's really interesting to me that we start off with this shot of the prairies, which are kind of alive and movement and the wind and you kind of hinted at the sort of the landscape and the habitats. And then the next image is of this people eking their lives out on a very rugged land. You had mentioned dune earlier, and so I'm just like,
yes.
you're studying the Fremen to figure out how they live, which I think
that's almost the way it is. Yeah,
I think it's really interesting. Really, I'm sorry, just nerded out for a second, but we have to go on to the next photo. Lance, this is great. This is totally great. Next. So is life really a gift? Really? Can you make every second count? That's the whole point of the podcast. So if you like what you've seen and you're inspired, because that really is my mission, then please give it a like, subscribe, and share.
Shooting it raw?
Yes. Shooting it raw.